So we kind of have this fifth, and below the bottom note is that half step. So he's doing this a lot.
Sawasdee krab, Kun Kevin Harris ครับ Nice to have you here.
Nice to be here. Thank you for having me, dear.
โอเคครับนี่คือสุดยอดมือเป็นโนจาก Berklee College of Music นะครับแล้วก็คุณเควินยังมีอัลบั้มหลายอัลบั้มออกมานะครับเขาเป็นมือเป็นโนที่สุดยอดมากวันนี้เรามาคุยกับเขาในเรื่องคอร์ดเรื่องสารพัดเกี่ยวกับวิธีการเล่นวิธีการคิดนะครับที่จะอัพพลายไปสู่การใช้บนกีตาร์ได้นะครับโอเค for the first question.Please tell me about your music background.
So my music background, I'm born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky. And my own background, I remember back to hearing my mother and father play the music of Motown. So a lot of Stevie Wonder, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Temptations, that type of music was heard on my record player.
It's like a soul music.
Soul, yes, R&B. Also, I grew up in the black gospel tradition, so that was the church. So being a part of that culture was also very important for me. So the music that I experience has always been connected to a human experience. So it's never just been music by itself. It's connected to people, it's connected to singing.Dance, movement, spiritual connection from a very young age.
Which instrument that you learn?
What was my first instrument?
Yes, I mean the first.
My first instrument was a trumpet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why you turn to the piano?
I think the main reason I turned to the piano was because of a man by the name of Charles Little. He was my first piano teacher.
Okay.
He was also my band director. As I played trumpet,in the junior high band, he was the director of the band. Very influential, very soulful, wonderful piano player, also in the black gospel tradition, but just a wonderful teacher. As a matter of fact, because of him, I knew I wanted to be a teacher before I wanted to be a piano player, as far as, profession, because he was such a inspiring person, and still is. He's still with us. So that was my first instrument was a trumpet I played.But then because of him and hearing some of his students, that's what made me want to also play the piano. As a matter of fact, you know that song Georgia on My Mind? Georgia? That song. I heard one of his students. I said, I want to learn how to play that. And so that's when I started studying from him. He taught me how to read the notes, but he would also bring me assignments on a cassette tape. And so I would have to learn some songs by ear.And he would teach other songs how to read the music. He's a wonderful teacher.
How did you taught yourself about the piano, or maybe you go to the school and go to the great teacher?
I consider I have many great teachers. Charles Little was the one I told you about. There was another teacher that I had before I left Kentucky, who was in college, my undergraduate. His name was Jay Flippin.Okay. And he would ask me great questions. He would play like a melody that was classical, but he would play harmonies that were jazz. Or he would play a melody that was jazz and harmonies that were classical. And then after he would play, he would say, so what is this? What is this music called? And I was like, I don't know. And he would say, that's the point. Good music is good music. Yes, there are categories, and sometimes they're necessary, but in the end, don't get boxed in by different categories. He was a wonderful, Jay Flippin, he was wonderful.
So I know you have some chance to learn with Fred Hirsch.
Fred.
What is the most important thing that you learned from him?
I learned a lot from Fred. Fred, in a lot of our lessons, to a lot of his students, including myself, he would make sure that our hands talk to each other. By that I mean instead of just playing a melody that goes instead of just playing melody, try to think of different voices, like different people singing. So we have first voice is maybe kind of here, and we go, just like two voices.
Yeah.
And then we would practice adding three voices. And then so more and more voices, he would just, we're always thinking, because we can get in the habit of musicians and just human beings of doing things without thinking. And he always wanted you to be thinking and awake and alive and engaged. And I thought that was just so very special. And not, of course, there's counterpoint in classical music, but what Fred would emphasize is, whether it's classical, whether it's jazz influence, just always have different voices moving, stay engaged, keep your eyes open,
Okay.
and take chances.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For the next question, I know you graduate from the New England.
New England
right?
Conservatory. Yeah.
Okay. What is the most important thing that you get from the New England?
There was a lot there too.
So because that place is so conservatively, there is a lot of the classical music that is not so much jazz.
Right, it's a small jazz program.
Yeah.
Many more classical musicians there. Well, that has a plus too, because we get to see and experience a lot of what's called Western classical music. So you get to kind of see and talk and be influenced by those musicians. And also there's another department called the CI, Contemporary Improvisation Department, while I was there. And those particular musicians too, we would all kind of overlap. Also, when I was at the New England Conservatory, there was another pianist. You probably know his name is Danilo Perez. And so he was
He's
another
a very
teacher.
good musician.
Yeah, also. So being influenced by them, a lot of the students, a lot of the faculty there. Also, even outside of the New England Conservatory, all of those students would overlap with a lot of Berklee students. I have to say also there's a club that's in Boston. It's been there. It's a historical institution. It's called Wally's Jazz Club. And a lot of those musicians, whether you go to the New England Conservatory of Music or Berklee, outside of school, they would meet at this club.
Yeah.
And a lot of the older musicians, or more experienced musicians, I should say, would be playing there. And so the younger ones can always kind of come in and, learn and be influenced. And so now I play at that club now. Yeah.
Really? Oh, yeah.
But I also, there were so many musicians there that played there before. I would get to listen to them and be a part of that tradition.
And you say you refer to the gospel music and R&B music when you grow up. What is the heart of playing gospel music?
That's a good question. Man. Well, I'll say this too. There are many types of gospel music.
Okay.
There's Southern gospel music. There's more kind of like an Appalachian gospel music. When people say gospel, they're literally it means like the message of Christ delivering. But the musical styles and the cultural styles are talking about, how those different cultures overlap. So when you say black gospel, I think about culture. It's just like if someone says, what's at the heart of like Thai culture? That's a big question. It's a very big question.
So I asked this question because I'm Thai people. Yes, I don't know so much about the gospel.
Well, again, at the heart of black gospel, I think about movement. I think about belief. And also historically in the United States, for many African Americans, the beginning of our historical experience was one of pain and suffering. But for a majority of the time of that history, the church has been a place where we were safe. So there's also that cultural experience that you hear in the music and that you experience in the music. And so even if you go to see someone who's come from that experience, you can feel it from anyone. I mean, it's gone on to define a lot of American music, from Aretha Franklin, who comes from a spiritual background, but secular. Ray Charles, spiritual background. Even Thelonious Monk. Thelonious Monk was on the road for 2 years with an evangelist. And someone asked him later on, what was that like? What was that experience like? And Monk said, it's like rock and roll. We just played something similar to rock and roll. Because a lot of, the African American tradition come from the church, it has gone on to influence a lot you may think it sounds like rock and roll, but other people think it sounds like gospel.
Okay.
Because they're so, even the contemporary things today, contemporary musicians today.
Can you show me some gospel style on the piano?
Oh yeah, so like
just a little bit.
It's funny, like the older stuff, like
Yeah.
You know that song, "This Little Light of Mine."
Yeah.
You may hear someone sing this. This little light of mine, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine. That's a little bit older.
Yeah.
A little bit older, and you hear it in the music of Ray Charles.
Yeah.
You hear it in the music of Aretha Franklin, but maybe a little bit more contemporary. You take the same melody, and you could go. The same melody of This Little Light of Mine. There's many more kind of contemporary harmonies.
Yeah.
And there you also hear the overlap of a lot of jazz harmonies, a lot of contemporary jazz musicians. That where it's always kind of going back and forth, church. Jazz.
So what the one thing that I love in the gospel style, I love the chord progression. It's so very simple, but it's very soulful.
Yeah. That's at the heart. Of the culture. If I eat some really good Thai food, it's going to be the same. It's the soul of that culture is in the food, it's in the music, people. Yeah, it's important.
Okay, let's talk about maybe the two last week ago you have some chance to have your online teaching. Like
Zoom.
In Zoom you taught about composition. Can you give me some advice about the beginner who wants the beginner student who want to play music and they want to compose their own songs. What is the basics of the compose?
Well, there's a few components we need to think about, right? We need to think about melody, harmony, rhythm, just the components of most music.
The three things.
Yeah. If I'm just kind of break it down like that. And I think if we're working on composition, if we can focus on that being an expression of who you are, eventually is a nice goal. But first we need to figure out how other great composers and musicians have expressed themselves.
Okay.
So if you want to be a great composer that sounds like, I don't know, if you really like Thelonious Monk, then you need to probably sit down and study Monk.
Okay.
And then ask yourself, how can you maybe try to compose a melody like Monk or harmonies like Monk?
That's why you have to learn.
Okay. It's very important.
If someone want to compose in the good way, in the good composition and in the right way, they have to learn with you at the Berklee, right? Obviously there's some great composers, great musicians at Berklee, but I'd say a majority of those musicians have gone to, a lot of their heroes too. So it's definitely a tradition. Okay.
For example, if a person wants to study with me, that's great, but we're going to study together from Monk. Or Herbie Hancock, Mary Lou Williams, or Hazel Scott. We're going to find some of these great pianists that have come before us and learn from them.
Okay. For the next question, we will talk about your album. So I love the song "The Nile" very much.
The Nile.
From your album, the name, the Museum. Volume 1,
yes,
right? How you compose this song? Is I feel I feel the Wayne Shorter style in
Yeah, especially in the fact that it's kind of through composed. It starts with one way, then it kind of changes another way. That was inspired a lot by the story that things tell. For example, like an old tree that's 100 years old. Imagine the stories of that tree. So I was thinking, you know, what would the stories of the Nile from Uganda, Sudan, Egypt, what stories would it have to tell over all this time? And that's what I had in mind. You know, there would be lots of stories, lots of history. So
yeah, it's very cool composition. Yeah. Okay, your last album, Bird Interpretation, right? Okay, how come the idea for this album? So I mean the whole concept of the album, because as we know, Charlie Parker's song is bebop style, is very fast and very, but you change everything, turn to maybe the rhythm and blues, old blues, gospel style, right?
Odd meters.
Yeah. How come the idea?
I feel like in the same way that Charlie Parker was such an influential musician that we still ride the waves of the impact that he made. You know, you drop a stone in water and I feel like with this album I want to try to do something as unique. You know, how does Kevin Harris study the impact that Bird made, but in the same time, you know, try to drop my own marble into the water and see what type of Bird is unique. There's only one, you know. It's hard to express yourself. You know, you really need to shed and practice and in depth and understand the things that
you have
he's doing.
To understand the outline or the song very well. With each one of those chords, you can't just, I mean, you could play the blues over a progression like this. You could go, you know that song, if you take the melody with the changes to something like that, like. Each chord requires that you outline it in a very soulful blues. Like, I'm trying not to leave the blues. People say bebop and they stop thinking the blues. But with Charlie Parker and a lot of those musicians, it's the same. It's, you know, it's still there. So I'm trying to just, you know, hold on to that culture and importance, but at the same time, you can't skip over a Bird, in my opinion. You know, if you want to play funk, fusion, any of that, you know, you need to spend a little bit of time on that. You don't have to sound exactly like him. That's what I did with my album, but you got to kind of spend some time with Bird, So, you know, I love you play the melody, the segment really much. I feel like you play the very laid back, the melody. I feel that. I love you. You play this very much. So because the original song is very fast. But you turn to slow and put the rhythm mix. You
know, I think when it comes to something like that, like the more we can internalize, whether it's super slow, whether it's a really fast song, the more we can internalize and be solid with that rhythm, the more laid back we can be. But if the internal drum isn't solid, it's hard to do that, you know.
Okay, keep this, we will talk this subject. Okay. Another song I think is a very cute song from you, the dinosaurs
Dinosaur Suite. That's also
Dinosaur
from
Suite.
museum.
Yeah. It's very cute concept.
Yeah, that's when I wrote that song, I had like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I had the bigger dinosaurs, in mind. For anyone who wants to check out that song from the album Museum, hopefully they imagine an experience of dinosaurs.
Very cute.
Yeah, when other people hear that song, they go, "Oh, definitely."
Yeah, it seems like
out.
when I listen to the whole song, this is the experiment music, and it's like free jazz. Yeah.
Even at that time, I was checking out a lot of Bartok's octets, a lot of those harmonies. So some of those harmonies that you hear are, Bartok influence, but a lot of the rhythms, there's other rhythms in Cuban music that you're hearing in there. Some of it swing. So yeah.
In your opinion, which song is yours that you want to musician try to learn?
Which one of my own compositions should musicians try to learn? There's a lot of musicians. I love playing their music and they love playing mine. One of the recent tunes that I wrote, it's a song called Doorways.
Doorway.
It was a commission piece. I was commissioned by the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum to do a commission piece.
Okay, I saw this in YouTube. You talk about Doorway.
Yeah. It's that piece that I wrote. So that's one of my favorites. I mean,
why?
If musicians want to learn it, they can. They don't have to. But well, the experience through the museum actually was inspired. I was walking through the museum with my wife, and she's a very creative thinker also. And so she was like, as we walk through this room into the other, isn't it interesting the mood that changes? If you sit down and you look at this piece of art on the wall, you may like it or not like it, or even more importantly, don't form an opinion about it at all, which is hard to do. If you're looking at this piece, other people come in, they go, "Oh, I don't like that piece." Then you too have to focus just on that piece to not be swayed by their opinion. And from room to room in life, as we go from stage to stage, it's hard to maintain just what you want to do and stay really focused, So each one, there's different parts of the song. When we perform it now with other people, we'll play the whole song through. The first section I'll solo on, we go to the next section, maybe the trumpet player, a solo, the saxophone, and so on. So each portion of the song is a different room. Yeah.
This is the concept.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For the next question, if you want to learn the new standard jazz song, what is your process? So it's really hard for everyone who want to learn the new song.
Yeah.
You have to learn the melody, chord progression, or learn to improvisation. What is your process?
I was just talking about this with Jason Camilio. We were just talking about this process. So with this, I actually have a lot of my students. And also myself, we try to learn songs away from the piano. For example, there's a song called My Ideal.
It's a really beautiful song.
Yeah, beautiful. You know it. Beautiful. So, and I'm just checking out Chet Baker's version of this song. And if you're just taking a walk in the park, you listen to the melody. Oh, will I ever find the girl in my mind? That one. So, so now we're just kind of playing a numbers game. 5, 6, 5, 3, 1, 7. And so we're not around the piano, but we're imagining that in the key of E flat, imagining those numbers in the key of C. Just, it doesn't have to be every key, but maybe just like a major third apart. Then also thinking about the bass. Boom, 6, 2, 5. Do different keys in your mind, sing away from the piano.
It's really hard.
Yeah. Now, of course, you're listening to Chet Baker's version.
Okay.
And you're just kind of maybe hitting pause after 4 measures, after 8 measures. Then when you finally get back home, you sit down at the piano and just see how well you've done that.
So you mean when you do something like this, you will get the melody inside your head all the time.
And the lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
And the lyrics too.
Okay.
Very, very, very important.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of my process. That's been taught to me. It's not something I've developed. I've just learned this from many other great musicians that.
When so many jazz player beginner want to improvise, there's always play scale up and down. So you know what I mean? It's not a first thing. It's not a jazz language. Please give me some advice.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. Yes, in that particular case, if someone wants you to teach you a language or the person is learning a new language, yes, the foundation is the alphabet. But better, you probably listening to just the language of, the flow of the words and the sentences. I would suggest kind of starting there, and I think that's what you're talking about. Instead of starting with the scales, start and understand how those scales are put together. So for example, we could start off, say for instance, we're learning a chromatic scale, right? Right? We could practice that all day, which is cool. You know what I mean? Like, we all need to work on technique for plenty of it. But also, if we start asking ourselves, how can we use chromaticism in a solo, then maybe Herbie Hancock, we can look at something chromatic that he does. And maybe, I'm just kind of thinking of the last thing. I forget, that album, My Funny Valentine, Four More, that one, that Miles album. And Herbie does some stuff like, there's some patterns that go. So he goes. So we kind of have this fifth, and below the bottom note is that half step. So he's doing this a lot. And he puts it in all these really unique places. So if we play in that song, My Idea, oh, will I ever find the girl in my mind, the one who is my ideal? So we can go, oh, will I ever find? Like chromatic things, to hear him use that where it's chromatic and then land on a chord tone. Oh, will I ever find the girl in my mind? That's the 5. We know we're going to land on D flat. Some girl in my mind. We wouldn't necessarily think, oh, let's start with the chromatic scale and then learn that we start here. And they go, oh, that's something that Herbie Hancock's doing with the chromatic scale. So the words and the phrases first, then the letters, if that makes sense.
So I think in your advice, I think it's about they have to copy or they have to transcribe the great artist. Right. This is a good way.
It's really important
to learn jazz language. Okay.
Very, very much so. And just one piece at a time. There are some people who are able to transcribe an entire solo, and that's fine. But I usually, for myself and many of my students, just pick a phrase. If you're teaching me, Thai phrases, you wouldn't expect me to memorize a whole paragraph. You would teach me a few phrases. So I think the same thing is important.
Okay. That's good. Okay, you refer to the chromatic scale or bebop scale or bebop line. Could you give me some advice to practice chromatic and bebop line? Because it is the same question as we talk about it. It's really big problem for the beginner.
I think there's a way that a lot of musicians from Bud Powell to Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, like there's a lot of chromaticism in how they approach the notes. For example, if we have E flat major, we have the root here, the 3rd, the 5th, but instead of just playing, let's say for our rhythm is like this. Let's keep it simple.
Okay.
Right. Swing about right there, right? Instead of just playing the root like this, let's find chromatic ways to get there, just as little personal exercises for ourselves.
Okay.
What am I doing here? Check it out. So I'm approaching a whole step from above.
So So you play the chromatic on the upbeat.
There's a chromatic way to approach
Okay.
it. Yeah, but I'm thinking just the root. So how many ways can we use to approach the root? And the third. The fifth. And then combine them together.
Okay.
If we take time to learn how to do that on major chords, minor chords,
dominant.
then we're able to like really,
blah, blah. Okay.
then we're able to, again, like. Aiming for the thirds on those chords, But again, for the students who are doing that, on E flat, I would just approach the root. A flat.
Okay.
Maybe just take it through the cycle of fourths. Or maybe start on a blues, like B flat blues, the third, root. Four chord. Right? Then maybe the third next time. It's simple. It may seem simple at first, but we have to kind of start somewhere to be organized.
It seems like the enclosure concept.
Enclosure?
Concept.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's the name for it, but it's bop.
Yeah.
That's the educational name for it. It becomes enclosure, but it comes from Charlie. It's bebop. It's bop. Before it was called bop, they were playing it.
Could you give me some advice to practice a good time and a good rhythmic? This is a big problem all around the world.
Yeah, I know. Dance with the music, sing with the music, move to the music. If you come to a piano lesson or a guitar lesson or something like that, you expect to just play guitar. But if the teacher or you say, let's just dance, let's move.
Okay.
If someone says in a lesson, sing along with me, some students may feel a little strange doing that. But if you want good rhythm, you have to internalize that rhythm. You have to dance. You have to become kind of one with that music. So that means singing, dancing.
Okay. That's a good advice.
Even as you're listening to albums, just like if it's a swing album, being able to snap on 2 and 4 and sing those patterns. There's a great album. There's many great albums. I have some of my students snap on 2 and 4 with a lot of the songs from Wynton Marsali's album, Standard Time, Volume 1.
Volume 1.
Because there's some really tricky rhythmic things they're doing on there. So I just have them learn how to sing the solos and snap on 2 and 4. No piano playing at all.
Okay. For the next question, how did you make yourself relax when you play in the very fast or very slow tempo? Very fast seems like a bebop, and slow like ballad. It's really different. It's really hard. Right. You know what I mean? Okay.
Yeah. I think also that goes back to the last answer I gave, just being able to practice singing and in turn. A lot of times being able to play fast isn't that you have the chops, it's that you can hear fast. Does that make sense? If you're a drummer and your bass player are like cooking 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. We need to be able to hear this fast. Boom, 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 beat, or whatever. Being able to sing and hear that fast is very important. So again, just snapping along with albums where they're playing fast or really slow, snapping there too. It's hard, right? A nice blues. That's hard to do, man. That's like the 2, 3. That drum is going the whole time. Hey. that slow is hard.
Yeah.
You know, but beautiful.
Back to the rhythmic time.
Yeah. It's real important. Real important.
Okay.
You have a lot of guitar players that probably already know that, though.
Okay. For the next question about the chord. When the beginner player want to play tension chord, for example, like a flat sharp 13 at 9, so you know what I mean? It's really confused. How should I do?
Right.
It's very weird chord.
Yeah, well, you maybe at first it's a little weird. You're right. You know, it's kind of like eating a new food. The flavor is new at first.
Yeah.
But after you eat it for a while, it becomes normal.
Same as me when I saw this chord, I will cut another tension just only. I only see the A flat 13 or A flat 7. But I don't know how should you do about this.
Well, for example,
for the beginner.
Well, if it's like a sharp 11 chord, like if it's A flat.
A flat, sharp 13.
With the sharp 13.
Add 2.
And you said 13
Sharp 13.
Which is like a flat 7, right?
Right. But in when we saw in some chart or is really so confused.
Well, you know, I think usually that instead of calling it a sharp 13, we usually just call it a flat 13, right? I mean,
Okay. Maybe flat 13.
Flat 7.
Okay.
But if we do have, say, something like, there's our 13 right there.
Okay.
And if we have like a sharp 11 in there, right? That too can be like a very unique sound. But again, we're talking to the beginner.
Yeah, beginner.
So I would suggest playing this sound, kind of getting it in your ear for a while. If you look closely at this, like this A flat dominant sound in this case, it's just like a B flat triad over top of it. So for the piano players, it's easy for us. We can just kind of
For the piano, it's so easy. But in guitar, it's really hard.
The right hand for me is just a triad. So maybe you can play that sound. You know, download this A flat sound, but then also play these tension tones above it too, and maybe play different harmonies, like inversions of the melodies too. If you can have somebody else play along too, that's great. You can play along with people. Also listening to musicians who play those sounds.
Okay.
For example, you know, on Bye Bye Blackbird, when Miles Davis, when he quotes the melody, instead of going, Miles plays, when you hear him quote like that, like that's a melodic way to learn how to hear those different sounds too. Wynton Kelly on those same albums, he'll do things like, he'll kind of invert that triad again. So learning the language that uses a lot of those tensions is smart too.
Try to transcribe the song.
Yeah, transcribe ideas that use those tensions. So it's fun.
And learn some theory. Yeah. So many guitar players or musicians always talk about triad, but they don't know how to use triad.
Oh, that's what we were just talking about.
Yeah, let's talk about.
Yeah, so I defer to my previous comment. I just being able to hear other musicians use them is the route I would take. Again, if you know the pianist Wynton Kelly, you can hear him use some triadic ideas. There's lots of Cedar Walton, Kenny Barron. I'm naming off a lot of piano players for your guitar.
Okay, for the next question, it's about the reharmonize. Yeah, please give me some advice about how you reharmonize the songs. Maybe can you give me some example about the 12-bar blues?
Because you're a guitar player, I'm a piano player, we could talk about this for the next day. But we're not going to.
Okay. Maybe you have to reharmonize in the chord progression of the 12-bar blues.
Yeah, if you take Now's the Time.
Yeah.
If we take something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Name a note.
Yeah.
Name any note.
F.
F.
Okay.
So let's start there. Let's go down whole steps. E flat.
E flat.
I'm gonna choose that D flat.
Okay.
I've just kind of created a system for myself to just go down whole steps. Each time we play them, we can determine if they're going to be major or minor. It depends on you. How about major? E flat major.
D flat.
D flat major, exactly. I'm changing that. Here I'm going to continue to major, but our melody note is now what? Sharp 11. Right? Maybe we can keep on going. Now this is the sharp 5. F is now the sharp 5 of A. F now becomes the dominant. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Sounds.
Then we start to put rhythm to it, maybe like. Maybe change the bass line a little bit.
Yeah.
Now we have like rhythm, bass line, and we're still talking about that blues melody.
Yeah.
So we have. You know, so yeah, and that's just from creating a reharm exercise of just going down whole steps
step.
every time. You could do half steps, you could do major thirds.
First of all, you have to remember the melody,
Yeah.
and then change the melody in other key.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of theory. There's a lot of theory we're not talking
Go
about.
back to theory again.
Yeah, so the theory, anybody who's like having a hard time in theory class, this is the reason you should pay attention, you know, in your theory classes, because all of this stuff really starts to matter. You know.
For the next question, in your opinion, how Thelonious Monk song is cool?
Why are Thelonious Monk? Oh, wow. They're just so varied. You know, the brilliance of Monk requires that we kind of embrace, understand, and do our research on melodies that are very kind of angular. He's got this tune called Trinkle Tinkle. It goes like this. You know, like that's pretty. You know, there's comedy and humor there, you know, and brilliance. But at the same time, there's melodies like Ask Me Now. Or that beautiful melodies.
Yeah.
So to me, to answer your question, kind of the brilliance of Monk is to understand those melodies, also understand his improvisation. But most importantly, Monk was an artist who really remained constant. You know, again, we were talking about the museum earlier. When people say, no, you need to be like this.
Okay.
But you have the fortitude and strength to remain strong and consistent. Monk needs to be studied for that too.
The same question, when you have to play Wayne Shorter song, John Coltrane song, Thelonious Monk song, what is your process and what is the most important thing when you improvise on those songs, those compositions?
You're mainly talking about songs where the chords are a little bit more difficult.
So I mean, it's a very different style, and they are all the unique style.
A little bit more like advanced.
Yeah.
Play them slow. At first, for me at least, you know, even Coltrane, you know, would play that music slow before he played it fast. Again, like, you know, learning a language, we should understand the components slow, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Play very slow until you get everything inside your head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very slowly.
Okay. In your opinion, which song is perfect composition
What's a perfect composition, man? If I have to think deeply about that question, I'd say it's the composition that by its composer and the people who play it allow it to continue to evolve. That is a perfect song to me.
Okay.
You allow it not to be constant. If it has to be this way, but if you allow it to breathe and continue to evolve, yeah, there's something there. You know, there's I don't know, what's a good example? Herbie Hancock's Watermelon, like Watermelon Man. There's a lot of versions of that Herbie has allowed it to become what it becomes. He's not so rigid where it has to be this way. That song, you know, Ugetsu, Fantasy in D. That one. There's versions of that Cedar Walton plays it one way. Then Freddie Hubbard has another version. It's completely different. So perhaps that's the perfect song, one that we allowed to continue to evolve. Maybe that's it. Hopefully I'm answering your question, but to the best I can, yeah.
Thanks so much. Okay, as we know, you have some chance to play with Eddie Gomez. Yeah. How did you join with Eddie?
You know, just the times, I didn't get to play with him a lot, but when I did play with Eddie, his ability to listen, lead, and also encourage. Like he was really able to play, but also know that, okay, how's DL doing over there?
Yeah.
You know, he's leading, playing, but listening to everything that's going on, can hear everything. And obviously he's just a monster player, you know, and a beautiful individual and a human being. But I noticed that about him when he's playing. He's able to just kind of know everything that's going on at the same time. You know, like one of those soccer players, you know, like there's certain positions where you see everything that's going on at the same time. You're able to kind of see the whole chessboard. That's what he reminded me of.
So just very good luck to play with him.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the big problem when you have to tour concert or making a clinic?
For me, I don't eat meat.
Okay.
So I'm a vegetarian. So that can be one of the challenges, you know.
It's about food.
Yeah, there's a lot of great food all over the world. But some places are you know, have lots of options and some don't have as many, so that's a bit of a challenge.
Okay, which album that changed your life forever?
That's another good question. There's definitely that Standard Time that I remember just, you know, that was one of those albums I heard that helped me to understand, oh, this is like another level of musicians. And at that time, a lot of people were like, you know, this is swinging, that album isn't swinging, this, you know, there's a kind of whole debate. And then I just remember hearing the way that Jeff Tain Watts and Bob Hurst, the way that they would lock up. For some reason, it reminds me of the way I felt growing up, like back to when I was a kid, the way that it felt in the church. And it's hard to explain, but just the feeling of that. Marcus Roberts was on piano, and it's just something about that album that made me, I just listened to it for a long time. It was in rotation for a long time. There's a lot of, you know, music, kind of Pan-African music you'll find in Brazil, Cuba, Panama, you know, lots of different places where you know, a lot of those albums kind of resonate with me. Yeah.
Okay. For the last one, what is the most important thing that musicians should pay attention but they are not?
I think listening is important.
Okay.
Yeah. Just listening. I continue to learn that myself. And I'm not talking about just music, you know, just turning down the volume of what I want to say so I can hear DL better.
Yeah.
You know, just, it's important. If we learn how to do that with one another in conversation, then we learn how to do it in music. If we learn how to do it in music, we learn how to do it with each other in conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much for the time.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah.
But if someone want to learn with you, they can go to the Berklee.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, as where I'm from, we say the good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. You know, it's like God willing. You know. Yeah. I'll be there. Yeah.
โอเคนะครับนี่คือบทสัมภาษณ์ของคุณเควินแฮร์ริสนะครับแล้วก็ติดตามผลงานจากคุณเควินนะครับแล้วก็ใครอยากเรียนเปียโนหรือว่าเรียนวิชาต่างๆก็ติดต่อที่เบอร์เคลย์นะครับเทปนี้นะครับกีตาร์ไทยต้องขอบพระคุณบริษัทสยามดนตรียามาฮ่านะครับและ Berklee College of Music นะครับสำหรับการสัมภาษณ์ครั้งนี้ผม ต้องลาไปก่อนนะครับแล้วก็รอติดตามชมว่าเทปหน้าผมจะสัมภาษณ์นักดนตรีท่านไหนนะครับเทปนี้ลาไปแล้วครับสวัสดีครับ